Special event, and we're going to get started here. We've got special kind of lineup for you tonight to celebrate Indigenous resurgence and healing in the South Pacific and Canada. And we have several films that we're going to feature, and we'll talk about, and we also have a special keynote. So my name is Jeff Corntassel. I'm from Cherokee Nation. I'm also Associate Director of CIRCLE, the Center for Indigenous Research and Community-Led Engagement, and really celebrating our long-term partnership with Pacific Peoples Partnership tonight, and some of the work that we've done together and will continue to do. Wanted to start us off in a good way tonight by bringing up Barb Holm, an elder who's from the Métis Nation, and really to start us off with some words of welcome. And so please welcome Barb. What up, Barb? I'll do the handoff.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Hopefully this works. My name is Barb Hume, and I am Métis, and I'm originally from Selkirk, Manitoba. I've been a visitor on these territories for the last 30 years. And as a visitor to these territories, I would like to acknowledge that I am speaking from the lands of the Lekwungen people, on whose traditional territory the University of Victoria stands, and acknowledge the Songhees, Esquimalt, and Wasanic peoples' traditional relationship with the lands that continue to this day. I am pleased to welcome you into these beautiful lands and into this warm and comforting space. I'm aware that 2021 is the 14th year of the One Wave Gathering, and that sharing has and is taking place throughout this month of September. 2020 and 2021 have been more than challenging for all peoples as a result of the pandemic, and I commend all for this year's themes of healing and resurgence. I believe the sharing of stories in our many cultural ways will demonstrate our resilience and our determination to move forward in a healthy way. Today is the International World Day of Peace, and I hope that each of us, in our own way, and through projects such as this, help each other, as was described in the write-up, to build a more equitable future for us all. Thank you for inviting me, and I look forward to all you have to share this evening and into our futures. Thank you.
Small token of appreciation from all of us for taking the time out tonight to be with us. So thank you. All right. So as Barb mentioned, thank you again, Barb. This is the International Day of Peace, and it's a special day for us to honor. As I was preparing for today, I was thinking of the Cherokee notion of peace. We have a word that's tohi, which means being still, but it also means being balanced. And so we think of peace in a much deeper way than just the absence of conflict or the absence of war. We think of it as a state of mind, right? And for us, you know, that peaceful relation means living according to the pace of nature. And so I think the stories that are going to be shared tonight are part of that. The stories teach us, the stories shape us, the stories really inform who we are as Indigenous people. So I'm looking forward to watching these films tonight. And we do have the drum group Answer that's going to join us a little bit later. But I think for now I'm going to hand it off to April and Mua, so the Director of Pacific Peoples Partnership, and Mua, who's the President. And so honored to have you both here and taking part in this. So, wado.
Malo sefua, fatalo fatu le swafaman malo Yesu Kristo. Ya. Ave ia nei teime whawhelo ia tua ia te o te umalava o eo loo apenao na maua mail nei whaasalaunga. Ia ta tono loo e soifua, o ia soifua langi mai ia te o te umalava. Ia whapena fo nei tū. Ia o te hia tautala e mua fo i on ave le whamalo whaaftai fo i tu whine nei tu fo i mo le whawhilo inga. Ia le ngata fo i lea, Dr. Jeff. Whaaftai fo i mo le nei teimi mo le whawhilo inga o mātou. Ia o le o sia sina whaalatalata atu a vea mo sui o le Pacific People Partnership e watuai se whaaftai tele lava ia te o tō uma. I just want to take a few words just to first of all acknowledge this place, acknowledge the territory, the traditional territory of the Lokwanan people. We're very grateful to be here on their territory. As the organization of the Pacific People Organization, we've had the privilege over the years to work with many of the people here in the university, including Dr. Jeff. So we're so grateful for welcoming us here. And today, very significant. The world today, we celebrate the word of peace, or the world, the peace. In our language, we call it Aso le file mu, o le file mu le la lang. So important for many South Pacific small islands. When we talk about the file mu, or the peace, it's important to our people. We're not a big country, but we always strive to find a way to at peace with each other and with nature and around the world. So we are, as Pacific people, we are constantly looking for a way to connect. And that just sort of lead me to the connection between the One Wave gathering and just being here and acknowledging the world peace. In our language, in my language, the Samoan, one wave, it's like a tasilengalu, tu tasilengalu molilalang, which means it's a one wave as we gather together. So if you look at it from someone that I grew up in the ocean, I grew up in right close to my home was right beside the beach. And I can hear in the morning, waking up, going up in the day, you can see the wave comes and go. But there are times when there's a big wave that come together. Most of us, little one back and then, we just jump in and surf. But there was something significant about big wave, because the wave actually gathering everybody, and it just bring forth, everything is on the shore and everything we're gathering. The wave will bring it in or take it out. And to me, this is a significant part of that. No matter where you are, when we talk about one wave gathering, it's a wave of everyone gathered together and acknowledge. And we need to always acknowledge world peace. And I just wanted to thank you for listening up and tuning to the live this afternoon, and we're so grateful for as a president of the Pacific People Partnership. We so grateful that you tune in and you're here with us and celebrate this, and looking forward to what more to come tonight. So we're just gonna to stand with you and remember great thing within this organization with those of the people that walk with us and journey with us. So whaftai lava fa manuia le tua. Hachgasiam.
Need those. At least it won't be as foggy now. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mua. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Barb. It's a real pleasure to be here with everybody here today and to mark International Day of Peace. It's such an important day, and a day that we need to kind of keep in our hearts, every day to remember, especially during these times of great division and hardship for so many people. So I know that for me that this holds a really big part of my heart. But so do youth, because I see youth as the promise of our future. And this program today is about celebrating and honoring youth. So I'm really grateful to all of the youth that have been participating in our programs, which began last year around looking at resilience and looking at those stories, those important stories that have those markers, that carry those legends, that also tell us what we need to do today in difficult times. There we go, excuse me. So, Mua's given a little bit of background on our organization. We've been in Victoria on Lekwungen speaking people's territories for over 45 years. And what we've been doing over those 45 years is linking peoples north-south for knowledge sharing, for community building, kinship, as we deal with some of the challenging issues facing us today, including like generations of colonization. I know that Ksid over here was telling me about how there was 5 different types of colonization that happened in her country in Palau. And it's just hearing these stories and having the ability to be in solidarity with others that have faced similar challenges, whether it's the extraction industries or dealing with COVID within our communities. There's a lot of work to do, and there's so much more we can do when we work together. And that's what PPP does, is we create opportunities for partnering, for learning together, for being in solidarity, for supporting each other when we need it. And I'm very proud of our organization and its long history. We started in the days of the nuclear testing, and still to this day, people that are from those regions are feeling the effects of those tests. But at least as a global community, we were able to stand and to stop those tests. But there's so much work to do. Again, we're here celebrating the youth, and we're also acknowledging resilience, and we're marking this Day of Peace. And for over 35 years, our organization has been involved in one of the world's most hidden genocides, and that is what's happening in West Papua. The indigenous West Papuan people have been annexed in their own territories by a foreign government and living under colonization for 4 decades. We have a speaker with us, a young leader, a young activist who is going to be speaking to you shortly. And I'm just going to give a brief introduction to him. And so Nathan Rew is a Papua New Guinean and a Iokea European, a doctoral candidate in sociology at the University of Auckland. He's raised in Aotearoa. Nathan is committed anti-colonial activist and educator who works to bring attention to and challenge the ongoing genocide of West Papuans under Indonesian oppression and occupation. His research focuses on Indigenous philosophies of water across Oceania and their necessity in navigating the coming consequences of climate change. So, is Nathan good to go?
Am I coming through? Is that all good?
Hi, can you try speaking, please?
Hey, yeah, is that coming through? No? Okay, yeah, we're all good? Good to go?
Yes, you're good to go.
Cool. All right, sweet. Hi, kia ora. I'm Nate. As is mentioned, I'm from Papua New Guinea, particularly from the village Iokea in the Kerema region of Gulf Province, Papua New Guinea. I'm a doctoral candidate at the University of Auckland. I've been in New Zealand, Aotearoa, most of my life, and have been kind of engaged and involved in a range of decolonial and anti-colonial and re-indigenization movements here. And yeah, I guess I was kind of invited here to talk a little bit about the West Papuan context, and the struggle that's been kind of ongoing there. And so, yeah, I'm not super certain about everyone's kind of general background in terms of the situation, but the ongoing West Papuan genocide has been happening since essentially the late kind of 1960s under Indonesian rule. It's a really kind of complex situation as to how that kind of unfolded and how it became Indonesian, under Indonesian control. And it has a long history that's kind of grounded in, I guess, a similar document which we've all kind of encountered as Indigenous peoples, the doctrine of discovery, and those kind of, I guess, the kind of legal justifications that were adopted by colonial nations to try and go into our territories and claim them. And so, you know, it's not often acknowledged, but the Dutch East India Company was the main proponent for colonization of West Papua in the first place in the early 1600s. And so, you know, we talk about the kind of ongoing genocide that's happening today, but it's part of this kind of longer, more broad history of colonization and the kind of brutal and violent consequences that I'm, you know, we're all aware of the colonial process and how it's unfolded. So originally kind of under Dutch control, and that was kind of reaffirmed in the 1800s. And then, yeah, through the kind of processes of supposed decolonization, it was weaponized language of decolonization, which essentially allowed the Indonesian people and government to claim West Papua as one of their territories. I mean, that's kind of one of the overarching reasons, but we also need to be really aware, and you know, the mentioning of extractive resources. The genocide in West Papua is fundamentally a genocide based on the fact that it's immensely valuable, it's immensely profitable for the genocide and for the suppression of West Papuans to occur. And this is kind of really important because often when we talk about what's happened and what's unfolding in West Papua, so I mean, just last week, we got video footage sent out from villagers being basically chased out of their territories by Indonesian militants as they kind of just opened fired into the bush, and our siblings, our Wontoks, were forced to flee. There's been widespread internet shutdowns as part of, in response to protests. Since I think about 1968, there's been at least an acknowledged or kind of generally accepted 500,000 West Papuans killed at the hands of Indonesian forces. And this is ongoing. You know, this is that. I mean, that's the kind of generic number. We see the deaths taking place every week, despite the attempts to kind of block media and all that. There's still information getting out about the context, and it's horrific. It's, yeah, sorry, it's tough. There's just a lot of really messed up ways in which Indonesia is kind of utilizing, you know, language around indigenous peoples and stuff to justify their colonization of West Papua, and that started back in the 60s and has continued into today. More recently, the kind of resistance has taken the form in response to an attempt by the Indonesian government to shift the relationship. They're recognizing that West Papuans are upset, and so they tried to kind of manipulate the situation a little bit by offering a vote on special autonomy for the West Papuans, and that was put through, I think, last year. They started the process of putting through these kind of discussions, and that's been overwhelmingly rejected by the West Papuan people. It's not something that people are in support of, and in kind of response to this, there's been protests and an escalation of violence, which has continued into the kind of more recent past couple of months. And so it's kind of frustrating being here in Aotearoa and then COVID and all these things kind of happening and not being able to really get out there and present. So I want to thank the organizers for giving me the opportunity to just to speak about this, because you know, even some of the Indigenous folks who are in Parliament and in government today, the Naya Mahuta, for example, they're unwilling to condemn Indonesia and not willing to really, you know, they're echoing the language of special autonomy as if this is something the West Papuans are fighting for or wanting. And it's only and will only ever be freedom for West Papua. I think that's, you know, there is no kind of compromise in that respect. And I guess in terms of where West Papuan resistance is taking place then against this kind of ongoing brutality, there's obviously the kind of explicit militant response that is taking place in terms of dealing with the kind of heightened militarization of Indonesia in that territory. But there's also resistance taking place around the world in really kind of amazing ways. And so one of those leaders, Benny Wenda, obviously is an important kind of figure in that. And the United Liberation Movement for West Papua, the ULMWP, they've kind of in a really brilliant step have just announced their interim parliament for West Papua and announced Benny Wenda as the interim president, which is, I think, in my kind of mind, a brilliant a step to just start with recognizing the illegitimacy of the kind of Indonesian claim to West Papua in that respect. Obviously, it's being met with resistance, and you know, we're still waiting for countries around the world to start, you know, perhaps recognizing this interim presidency and this interim parliament. But those are some of the kind of moves that are taking place today, which I think are really important in terms of challenging on a kind of geopolitical scale the ongoing genocide in West Papua. I think it's also, yes, I did mention the kind of extractive context, and I think that's important to focus on because that is one of the major obstacles that lies before us in terms of, you know, West Papua has, I think, the second biggest or one of the biggest gold mines in the world, as well as, I think, the biggest copper mine in the world, which, you know, poses some kind of interesting questions in terms of whose financial interests are allowing this genocide to take place. And you know, we can point out, you know, the big players, the Americans and even the Dutch are benefiting from it still. There's this kind of ongoing struggle against capital and the interest of capital there that need to be kind of brought out in terms of, yeah, just not necessarily, I mean, it just poses the biggest obstacle for us in terms of, as Indigenous peoples wanting to protect our environment and stop these kind of extractive systems. And that's tied with our sovereignty, and as a result, our attempts for sovereignty are constantly overlooked. Yeah, I think there's definitely hope, and the most amazing thing is just the increased discussion that's been happening around West Papua, the making aware of it and spreading it. You know, the fact that Indonesia is constantly trying to stop the media coverage and constantly trying to stop us from talking about West Papua and constantly trying to stop us from sharing, shows us that they're afraid of people's kind of understanding and knowledge of that context and situation. So again, I just really want to thank the organizers for allowing us to come and just share the story, share the struggle. I just, when the brother was talking about the one wave, I was also kind of reminded about a term in Pidgin that we have one sawara, the one saltwater, which is the kind of one saltwater which brings us all together, collectivizes us in our struggle. And I think, you know, if we're looking at the context of West Papua and its position in terms of the broader history of colonization, it's very much a history that I think we're all familiar with, and a history which has kind of left us in a really, really kind of horrific position. I think that's me.
Thank you very much, Nathan, for that really important overview of the reality of what's happening in West Papua and for keeping the fight alive. Our organization worked, like I said, in the advocacy around this issue for over 3 decades. But we were very fortunate in 2009 to have a 5-year program funded in the country by the Canadian government, and we're thrilled to see that that took place. We were able to do some really good work with health organizations, legal aid organizations, as well as with organizations fighting for the environmental rights and the land rights of the Indigenous West Papuan peoples. So we just say to our brothers and sisters there that we're thinking of you and that we also share that vision of Papua land of peace. Right now, I just want to start by introducing some of the stories of resilient members and just maybe give a quick little background as to what this program was all about. I guess at the beginning of the pandemic, when we realized how serious this was going to be, I think we just settled into it maybe a couple months last year. And I had a young group of women that wanted to come and talk to me. And these young Indigenous women were from Sartlip territory as well as Sauk Nation territory. And they came to the office and we sat together and they talked about, you know, about surviving this time of this COVID and climate change and all the convergence of everything coming together. And, you know, how would people, their question was, how would people survive? How do people survive? And I mean, you know, that's a big question and there's a lot to consider in that. And they wanted to do an investigation. They wanted to understand it. They wanted to go and interview elders and talk to people about resilience, about how it is that they are still here. What, you know, what contributed to that. And it was such an inspiring meeting for me. And we did try to set up some meetings, but as you know, with the lockdowns, we couldn't do that and still be safe at that time. There was too many unknowns. But those young women inspired a project that we were thrilled to do at our last One Wave, which was to assemble young people, some of which are still here participating today, as part of a cohort to explore what resilience means to them, and also to offer training in filmmaking and access to elders and to supports and places to go and to, you know, just resources so that they could explore what resilience means to them and to share their stories in their own way without having a lot of pressure around it. And I'm thrilled to say that the cohort grew to be about 7 or 8 youth that contributed in different ways. And you're going to be seeing some of the films of some of these youth today. But I also want to acknowledge that everybody contributed in different ways. So there's also publications that are coming out fairly shortly that we look for sharing with you all as well. And others had other gifts in performing arts. So we've been able to embrace those different voices in different ways and contribute and help to share and create a platform for those really important stories. So I'd like to invite Tana and Ksid up here just to maybe speak a little bit to what Stories of Resilience means to you, and then we'll introduce some of the films that we're going to showcase tonight. So, Tana, I'm totally putting you on the spot. I'm sorry. You just arrived, but I'm just thrilled to see you. And just a housekeeping thing, we're going to put this on when you talk, and so maybe one at a time, just so that the people that are live streaming can see and hear us. Okay. Who would like to go first? Tana, do you want to go first? You can take your mask off when you're talking if you're comfortable. You don't have to, though. Okay. I think maybe you. Yeah.
Alil Rogoi, ang Ksid Kloulechad, nga other belaw, akmal oreng hasule, amis kama atelegang artiang. My name is Sid Kloulechad. I'm from the Republic of Palau. It's a small island in the South Pacific, about 20,000 people. And I came here for my degree, and I finished it, but I'm very homesick. But I like to say that the Stories of Resilience taught me how to use technology and communicate in order to do storytelling. And storytelling is a big part of Palau. And just to share that the word for Palau for peace is Buddha. And every time I hear a story about peace, it's always women in my country who are showing peace. So I hope to share those stories with you. Thank you.
Uklasish, Tuflaitnuk, Histakshix, Ahousit, Ukwa Heshkuyit. My name is Tana Thomas. I come from Ahousit and Heshkuyit of the Mulchinock Nations. Yeah, I guess it was a couple years ago I worked with Pacific Peoples Partnership, and I did a summer internship with them. And we got together, a group of ladies, and we sat around the table and just shared the importance of creating a platform for our youth to speak on. And we talked about the intergenerational trauma that needs to be focused on as well. Like, lots of sectors need to be more trauma informed, and so it was really beautiful to create a platform through media that was trauma-informed, and to work alongside several Indigenous youth. And throughout this experience and this project, I have learned a lot about respectful storytelling and creating that space for our elders and our youth, our community members to find their own voice and put respectful boundaries around it too. You know, what is sacred and what stays in our communities, and what audience we're doing a film for. And so I learned a lot, and I'm really thankful to be a part of this project. So thank you. True.
So our first video that's going to be played is by Benjamin Mulchinock, who is a Métis and Cree student currently living in Victoria, BC. Having grown up in Vancouver Island, Benjamin has seen display of Indigenous resilience throughout his life. From the Idle No More demonstrations to growing up around the local Indigenous filmmaking scene, Benjamin continues to search for ways to share cultures and realize positive change. As a biology and philosophy student at Concordia University of Montreal, Ben is hoping to use scientific, academic, and writing knowledge to contribute to Indigenous causes, specifically with respect to the ever-increasing threat of climate change. Ben spends his other time reading, hiking, watching films, and going for runs. So please enjoy the video by Benjamin.
Lots of fun technical stuff. If we were in a broadcast booth, we would have switches. But we're doing a great job. Thank you, guys.
Nathan, sorry, Benjamin, you mind speaking to see if we can hear you and see you?
Yes. Oh, perfect. Okay. Am I audible right now? I'm assuming I'm good to go.
Yes, you're good to go. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you, Sid, for that introduction, and April for throwing this all together and making this day happen. I thought that my introduction was covered pretty well. I did the short film as part of the Stories of Resilience project, which I found out about just briefly as I was back in Victoria for Christmas. Right now I'm in Montreal, otherwise I would absolutely be here. But I heard about it and I knew that I needed to apply right away, knowing that I could have this opportunity to have this huge, vast amount of knowledge and resources, especially from April and Peter Bolt, who was coordinating a lot of the project. So finally being able to have all these resources and learn just such a great deal in such a short amount of time on photography, on filmmaking, on writing, and just kind of dip my toes into all these different mediums as a way of showing resilience and exploring it further and what it means to different people of various ages, from youth to elders, and really just see how vastly different resilience can be, whether it's an overtly political thing or in the form of activism or strive for political change, or even in more minor things like just getting through the pandemic, for example, if you are part of a marginalized group. So to be able to explore that and have so many meaningful discussions in such a short time was fantastic. And this little short clip was just one of those interviews that I did with Mary, who I'm not sure if she's in the audience. If she is, hi Mary, thanks for letting me interview you. I really she walked in one day to the office as I was doing other work, and I thought, oh, Mary, come here, I'm gonna interview you really quickly. And she was fantastic about it. So I had a really fun time, and it was really meaningful, the couple of months that I was able to spend meeting so many great people, and I'm very grateful for it. So yeah, thank you so much. Give me, Ben, a brief summary of who you are. Who is Mary?
Who am I? I'm from the Iokea Nation. My mother is Kwagyu, and my dad, my mom is Kwagyu, and my dad is Musko Zabdino, which is in Kingdom Inlet. And for Rupert, So they're both located on North Island. And I have a huge family. I have about 1 billion cousins, 1 billion aunties and uncles, brothers and sisters. But yeah, we're huge on soccer. Family's huge on soccer. If you ask, it'll be in my interview too. My uncle talks about soccer, and that's pretty much all he talks about. Yeah, family and soccer are the main drive.
Nice, thank you. Good answer. Next question. Can you describe to me what you are doing right now?
So I'm editing my interview that I did with a relative. So I'm just cutting and deleting footage that isn't needed, if there's long pauses or if you fumbled, and it'll be transitioned into a smoother video. And now what I'm doing is placing them in the right spot of the time frame.
And who is this relative?
Alex Nelson. So he's my great uncle.
The more the better, honestly.
Yeah. So the project I'm working on is Stories of Resilience, and that's what we've been working on for 2.5 months now. So we get to pick a person to interview, and that's how we came about. Our project is we all came together to do a docu-series and interview people to tell their story and what the resilience came from it. So what I did was my Uncle Alex, my great Uncle Alex, went to residential school, and he has been interviewed for years, and he's comfortable with talking about it. So at the end of the interview, he always talks about the resilience of it, of the tragedy and the trauma that came about it in the past, and that became intergenerational. So I'm 3rd generation from residential school, and I'm still, it impacts me. So he I don't want to say overcame it, but he is comfortable with it now, to talk about the resilience of it and how strong he became through hardship.
Yeah, and honestly, I think it's important. So many people, yes, they overcame it, they still don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
It's such a... Why do you think it's important to share these stories, and do you think it's especially true now?
I think it's important to share these stories because you're helping the youth and you're helping the next generation come after you, so that they know that they're not alone and they're not uncomfortable with who they are, they're proud to be who they are. So I think it's really important to tell your story of the people before us, so that you get to, they create a pathway for you when you're trying to make your way up.
Yes, really good. That's the main headline right there. Okay. I know you're also doing escalating in terms of depthness. The next one's a little bit deeper, so take your time, please, and answer it. What does resilience mean to you?
What does resilience mean to me? Oh, goodness. That's such a small word for such a big meaning. Because the first thing I think is community-wise, because people outside of the community don't know what happens inside of the community to make sure that the youth thrive, to make sure that the community thrives, which is being resilient. Having everybody come together to be one. And a word for that in my language is namoyut, and it means to be one. So I don't think anybody's individual. I think we all come together to just be resilient in our own way, but also together so that it's more than it is.
Yes. So good. So good. I love that. Totally. Okay, I'll say the question again. We can repeat the question and give your single grade. anything, when you were speaking to your subject, did anything surprise you or speak out to you?
I think what surprised me in my interview was mainly the whole thing, because it's talking about residential school. You know, I wasn't born, I wasn't there yet, I didn't experience it, but I still feel the impact and the trauma. Yeah, he'll explain it in the interview and the stories and what he experienced, what he went through. I couldn't even imagine that now in 2000s. Like, because the last residential school closed down in 19. I can't even remember.
It was 97?
96?
96. Not very long ago.
Not very long ago. But I could never imagine how that is now, if we still have residential schools now. Because my whole family, billions of us would be in there. But I think that's what surprised me the most, was just the whole residential school experience.
Sweet. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Next question, moving on.
Mm-hmm.
So, how has, maybe just in this situation where you think more generally when you think about resilience, how has COVID-19 made the process of showcasing resilience more difficult?
I think COVID-19 made it more difficult to showcase resilience because the first thing I think about is my elders, my matriarchs, my people, because I live with elders and they're vulnerable. So I think that made it really hard to showcase resilience because they're vulnerable, they can't go places, they can't speak at events that they usually speak at. Like my Uncle Alex, because he speaks a lot, he goes on Zoom throughout the day because he can't be there in person. So I really do, think COVID-19 affected that all.
Perfect, thank you. Brilliant, as always. So, of the interviews, stories, all that we're doing here with stories of resilience and all what some Indigenous youth are doing, what do you want to see come out of this? Like, I know, yes, we're making out things, but what do you want to see? What positive impact do you think our project, or do you want to see it have?
What I want to see is that we're not alone. Because there's how many of us doing this project? 7. There's seven of us doing a project, an interview, and it's more than just an interview, it's feeling it and being present in that moment. So yeah, we're not alone, we're all working together to make this project happen. I think that's pretty great.
What a wonderful video. Mary, what a thoughtful young lady you are. That was an incredible interview and exploration of what resilience means. And Benjamin, you're a natural reporter and investigator and also on your own journey of resilience too. And so well done. It's also nice to see you guys sitting at the office, playing with the tech, and I think that's really key too. Speaking of tech, I do want to acknowledge some of our key partners that are here right now and bring up Kat representing Flex Gallery, because we also have an exhibition of these digital artworks and films within the Flex Gallery, and I'll let her tell a little bit more about that program, and then I'm going to introduce B.
Shirt. Thank you very much, April, and hi everybody. It's nice to be here this afternoon. That was a really amazing film, as you mentioned. It was so nice to see that work. My name is Kat and Lewis, and I'm the program director with an organization called MediaNet, and we run something called the Flux Media Gallery. And really our goal there is to give people the tools and the technologies to be able to tell their stories and share their stories with others. As April mentioned earlier, it's really important to put these technologies in the hands of youth because they are the future generation. They have a lot of important stories and messages to pass on to people. So we helped with some of the technical training for the stories of resilience with the video you saw there. And my coworker Marina was involved in a lot of the support there for the youth. And we followed that up with another camp that was mentored by an artist, Indigenous artist named Peruzzo. And that was for 2 weeks. And he named that Our Stories, Our Lens. And that was furthering support for some of the young Indigenous creators that you saw today and helping them to complete their amazing works. We had the opportunity to work with Ksid on her film, which I'm sure you'll see later on this afternoon. And we were also able to work with the help and support of Tana Thomas. So we really appreciate working with Tana as well. That's been amazing. So yes, and as April said, we are showing these works in our gallery. We've got a little gallery on Pandora. It's by Oak Bay Junction. The exhibition is going to be there until the end of September, September 30th. So if you want to see these videos again, please drop by, and we have them playing on loops on TVs all day. And yeah, we hope to see you there. And I want to thank again all of the young artists whose stories we're seeing and whose creative expressions we're able to share with today. So thank you very much. You can tell she's a technical coordinator there with the microphone.
Yeah. It's my great pleasure to bring up B. Logan, who is also part of the cohort for Stories of Resilience. And I was very fortunate to work with her closely on the production of the publication Talk Belong Pacific, which will be coming out in roughly a few weeks. So we can't wait to share that with you, and so that you can see some of the poetry, some of the writing that's been produced by the youth as well. So B, would you like to come up and introduce yourself and share? It's always in the way, isn't it?
Ani Buju. My name is Biraban. I come from the Ojibwe, Potawatomi, Odawa, and Lenape Nations in southern Ontario. And I'm very proud to say that I've worked closely with the Stories of Resilience in their publications, and I'm actually going to read a poem I had written for the publication as well. I'd written this, I think about 5 years ago, actually. I've never had my poetry published before, and I've never really read aloud any poetry or written work that I've done, so this is the first. Miigwech. The title of this is Indigenous Resilience. Your ancestors see you and they bring reminders each day, in the wind, waters and fires, in the way the eagles hover and animals play. We know the feeling, and we know your days change as you wait for something and someone to say. I know some days are long and tiring and hopeless to you. Others are fleeting, filled with excitement and happiness too. But both are resilient because you choose to keep going through the pain, sorrow and loss. You keep on glowing. We know you feel like giving up some days. We know each time that you pray and pray. We are the reminders for you to try and survive. We are the reminders when your eyes can't stay dry. If all else fails to get you up in the morning, let yourself rest, cry, and be in mourning. All the things many of us couldn't do, nourish your mind, body, and spirit too. Nourish your hair, hand, and feet. For these are what will keep you and help you when you've reached defeat. And as long as you keep going, we'll be here to cheer. We will stand with you through every triumph and fear. When I wrote this, I had lost my grandma quite a few years prior, and I never really got a chance to mourn her. But when I did, it was finally a lot of reminders I would see in my day-to-day. My grandmother's favorite food was, Tim Hortons and favorite apple fritter. And so I would go, even though I hate those, I really don't like those, but for my grandma, I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna go have one of these, or I would smell her hair. And some days I could swear that I would just be wandering around and a gust of air would blow in the wind and I'd be cold, and I could hear my grandma saying, "Oh, BC, come on, let's go, hurry up." Or "Chickasab, let's go, hurry up, let's get out the door." And throughout my time with Stories of Resilience, I noticed that a lot of the youth were struggling with their own things, were struggling with day-to-day, and I was too. And that's one of the reminders that I kept in my mind, was that we still have our ancestors, our grandmothers, our uncles, our aunties, even though we couldn't go to their funerals, because I know a lot of youth had struggled with that. A lot of family members passed away during this time, and we're not able to gather, we're not able to be together. But sharing these thoughts, these moments, is definitely what carried us through, and definitely what helped us in our communities. And honestly, this has been my home away from home, and I'm thankful to be a part of Stories of Resilience, and for April through helping me through many tough times, and to be able to work with the youth. So Timigwech, and hope you guys enjoy the rest of the videos that we're going to share in the words.
Thank you. That was so beautiful. So for those that are here in the house with us, we just want to open the tables so that you can have some nourishment while we're watching the shows. So please feel free to go and grab some of the beautiful food that's been laid out. And a special acknowledgement to you, Jessica, for bringing some bannock for us, and some jams and some treats. So, please make your way when you feel that you're, wanting to have nourishment, to go and get that. And for those of you at home, that same thing goes. We wish you could have some bannock, though. It's pretty amazing. We're going to introduce the next film, and Ksid, this is your film, so maybe you could tell us a little bit about it and introduce it.
So my film is actually about the revitalization of voyaging in the South Pacific. And my family was lucky enough to sail with Cesario Suarur, who's a grandmaster navigator in the island of Yap. And he's the son of the famous navigator Mao. And I couldn't have done this project without my family. They sent me all their videos and their pictures. And it's just a small video, but please enjoy.
Imagine being under the stars in the middle of nowhere. There are no roads and no technology. Seems like it's a bit of an absurd place to be in this modern society. But this is the place most Pacific Islander voyagers have traveled. This is the path of many wayfinders that crossed in search of new land. Society decided to teach the youth about traditional navigation. The executive director and Senor was able to bring Mao's son, Master Navigator Cesario Serralur, into a real summer camp and to teach the youth about the basics of sailing, like predicting the weather for the next day based on the color of sunsets and the common stars used for sailing.
Survive through things and be able to bounce back no matter what circumstances we may face. Palau has been through 4 periods of colonization, yet here we are, our culture and our identity still remain. We went sailing to Mulu, the small island in Yap, and on the first morning, we had it showered and we woke up early in the morning, and at 5 a.m. Cesario told us that he asked us if we wanted to shower, and we all shouted saying yes, and he was like, jump. And we were in the middle of nowhere. There's no island next to us, and the waves were big but very calm. So we all did. We jumped and we swam and we did flips from the canoe onto the ocean, and it was so fun. And right when we went onto the canoe, a bunch of dolphins showed up, and it was just memorable. With the sunrise, dolphins swimming in the middle of nowhere. That's kind of like one of my favorite memories. But my favorite part about sailing is during the nighttime when all the constellations are revealed and we just learn about them.
I would define resilience as being able to bounce back or recover from a situation or circumstance despite the challenges that you go through. Sailing has shown me how we as a people depend on both the land and the sea for our survival, because it is, after all, everything is intertwined. And I have also come to realize that sailing is not only a way of transportation, but it was also a way for our ancestors to pass down their knowledge and values from generation to generation.
In late 2019, Okeanos Palau brought some youth onto traditional sailing classes with the crew. The crew of Okeanos sailed to New Zealand on a traditional water vessel that was handmade in New Zealand. The crew trained for months and they returned to Palau by sailing from New Zealand. Kloulechad and many others learned skills like steering the water vessel, fixing the sail, and hearing stories about navigators' knowledge of the stars, the sea, and the big open sky.
Resilience to me is the ability to bounce back after being affected by something significant, and the ability to recover quickly and move on.
Culture is basically my identity. It's like, it identifies who I am. I don't know, I wouldn't be the same person if it weren't for my culture. The way I do things, the way I am, my philosophies in life are all based or influenced by my culture. So it definitely plays a big role in my life. It identifies who I am.
Because not only is it beneficial to our environment, but it's also a long-lost part of our identity as Micronesians, specifically as Palauans.
Well, to me, safe part of our country to be with the ocean. So sailing has helped me feel the strong waves, feel see the night sky they can't see through city lights, and just to enjoy what nature has imparted.
If wayfinders never ventured as far as they within the Polynesian Triangle, the size of 2.5 times as Canada, the South Pacific Islanders wouldn't have the abundant knowledge or connectedness that the wayfinders have created. If you sail in a dark ocean with no lights or distractions, would you have the courage? For the navigators had courage as they believed what their ancestors taught them.
What do you think resilience means? I would define. What do you think resilience means? Stop! I'm very, but I can only figure it out.
Next, we are introducing Erin Blondo. She is a mother, activist, and citizen of Cowichan Valley Métis Nation, currently living and working on the traditional territory of the Tsuut'ina Asat Nation, also known as Lake Cowichan. She holds a bachelor's degree in anthropology and works as a communications coordinator at Indigenous Climate Action. She is also on the Young Professionals Committee at Impacts and is the board director for the West Coast Climate Action Network and a writer for Matriarch Movement.
Melanie Blondo was born in 1866 and was a part of the Muscogwan band before giving up her Indian status to be considered a half-breed Indian in the eyes of the law. I can't say for sure how my family felt about being enfranchised, but it is clear now with centuries past that this was another form of assimilation. The Muscogwan legacy has been completely lost among my family until I uncovered this part of our family puzzle when doing research for this story. I am the living, breathing reality for many half-breed Indigenous families that went through the process of assimilation. Searching through my family history is like untangling a ball of strings. I can never tell where one strand begins, so I just keep pulling and pulling until some of the string comes loose. Some days I am far too tired, my eyes too strained to make sense of it all, so I put it away for another day. Some nights I stay up all night, eagerly untangling every strand. Métis heritage is difficult for some to describe because we are a post-contact Indigenous nation. We are only a few centuries old, and in so many ways our history is just beginning. Melanie, alongside thousands of others of Métis, Inuit, and First Nations peoples, lived through forced assimilation. And like so many other untold Indigenous stories, Melanie's is a story of resilience. She used her artistic gift and talent to change the course of Canadian history. I read in detail about Melanie's story in a book called Writing Aboriginal Women into History by Sherry Farrell-Rosette. Her story begins in the late 1800s. Although residential school's mission was to destroy native lifeways, some Indigenous people managed to get jobs teaching at these stark institutions. And sometimes these teachers offered a little more than the typical curriculum, shining a small, secret light on the cultures that were being left in the dark. The Capel Indian Residential School ran from 1884 to 1969 in LeBret, Saskatchewan. This institution, like so many others, was filled with abuse and had virtually no budget for education. But miraculously, it did have an arts program, taught by an Indigenous artist.
That artist was my great auntie Melanie Blondo. Melanie's work has been quoted in documents in the Department of Indian Affairs as excellent and beautiful, so much so that they wanted to hire her to teach the little Indian girls. Melanie was hired for $20 a month to teach beadworking to Indigenous girls, making Capel Industrial School the only residential school in Canada with a budget for Indian handicraft. Melanie is said to have directly influenced 900 girls throughout the program. She taught girls how to make Indigenous art that was suitable to sell. She set young girls up with skills that celebrated their culture, which helped protect hundreds of Indigenous girls' identities. Although documentation at this time is limited, I can imagine how Melanie would have become a prominent figure in her community, especially because she could teach the students in their own language, and she even knew the families personally. Melanie's students had exhibits in the Regina exhibition and even won prizes. To think of Indigenous girls being able to proudly showcase their culture in a time when these same items were outlawed across the country is like seeing a flower thrive and grow through hard concrete. Melanie's beadwork was a new phenomenon at the time, being recognized by Cree elders as a distinctive new style. It is said that Melanie's unique flower beadwork and the lessons she passed down influenced the Indigenous beadwork that is seen across Canada to this day.
Our next video is by Mary Lagis. Mary Lagis is from Muskog, located in Guai, in Kinkom Inlet, and Quaggios, located in Saxis, Fort Rupert. Mary has lived in Victoria, BC her whole life with her siblings and parents. She is very excited to have the opportunity with Pacific People Partnership and cannot wait to gain more knowledge and experience throughout this program.
My traditional name is Okwilatame, and I get it from the second seat of the Gigotam of the Hawamis tribe. And Hawamis is one of the 4 tribes of the Musqueam-Matsawadino, Kinkom, Guilford, Hopetown, and Wakeman. And the Hawamis come from Wakeman. So that's how I get my traditional name. And my English name is Alex Nelson. Sometimes it's called Alexander. And I come from Kinkom Inlet, and I can say also Guilford Island. And that's where I was brought up, between the 2 villages. Mishnipila Kasla, Wala Sneakin Nala Knas. Mishnipila Kasla Hara Kando Knas. Gagla Hankatam Yakatnis. Kakutama Skiachno, no. And a Pachala Mdunge. My dad, Malagius, so he's got multiple names. He's from the Mulchinock, the Zawadeno. He has positions there. He's got positions in the Hawamis too. But there's Henry Nelson, and he married my mother. Her name was Kathleen, and she was a Lagus, and originally she's a Willie, and her dad was Yachatnis, and there's in the old days they had a big family. So I think Mom was the second oldest of her sisters and brothers, and they're from the Quiquasutino, the main bloodlines of the Willie. Today's last name is Willie, Toby Willie. So with that, and with my dad's mom, the C2 was from the Mulchinock. Say the biggest achievements when I said I will and I do to my wife when we got married. But overall, one of my biggest achievements that I think had come from the sport world, and I know we make reference to that later on, about how sport plays a wonderful role in my personal life. But I had a chance to lead the 1997 North American Indigenous Games here in Victoria in 1997. And it was a big, big gathering, and it required high-level organizing skills and tools and understanding about how to pay respect to the young athletes and create a place where it's safe and fun and warm. And so this was in Victoria in August 1997, from August 3rd to the 10th, for one whole week. We were responsible for the lives of those young people to ensure that they enjoyed themselves. And that was the biggest task that I ever was responsible for personally in many ways, but with a great team of workers and volunteers, it became a really wonderful, successful event. And that we had an opportunity to show the world who we were and show ourselves who we are. I entered Alert Bay residential school called St. Michael's, and it was run by the Anglican Church. And we know today that churches were primary players in involved in these residential schools across Canada. And there are maybe 4 different residential schools on Vancouver Island itself. Of course, Alert Bay is close to our communities, and it became a central place for other students to be sent there. And I know I made great strong friends with the Haidas, the Tsimshian, the Niskas, the Haisla, those are communities up and down the coast. And it was those students that came also be a part of the residential school experience. So it was kind of something where we know that it's a traumatic experience now. And at the time, we didn't use that term trauma because you didn't know what it really meant. You just knew that things were happening. And it wasn't until later on in years they had this class action suit, they call it, where the government was sued and they paid out money for all those that ever went to residential school. And so in preparation for that, I started to do a date, writing down dates. I says, if I went to residential school in 1954, and I didn't know what year I actually went there, so I said, okay, I graduated in 1965 in Mission, I know that's recorded, and I was born October 31st, 1946. So I started to do the yearly analysis. And I also knew that I spent the first 2 years, grade 1, grade 2, in Kinkham, in our home village. So I must have gone to residential school when I was grade 3. And when I said that, yeah, I remember going there when I was grade 3. So by that time I analyzed it that it was 1954, entered 1961, because that's when we got shipped even further away. They call it the boarding home program. And we ended up in a place called Mission City in the Fraser Valley. And so we got split up. I mean, there again, we know that to be taken away from your home village, taken away from your family, taken away from who you are, and not allowed to speak your language was really, really, I guess now known as a trauma and devastation. When did I realize I wanted to devote my life to soccer? I think it's a process thing. And then it becomes what I call passion. I went to University of UVic and I enrolled in leisure studies, sports administration. And one of my classmates asked me a question about, what is it about soccer that you're so passionate about, Alec? I didn't really have an answer at that time, at that moment. But it prompted me to question myself that, which is the question you're asking now. A seed was planted even when I was born. Because in Kinkham we were very fortunate to have a soccer field built, a nice beautiful soccer field built in 1937, 38. And then to go witness the spirit that soccer brought to the village was when, and I remember this, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon after people came from church, at 1 o'clock somebody would go up and down the village blowing a whistle that told the villagers that there's going to be a game at 2 o'clock. Thank you, because you had the whole tribe there circling that field. It became a big forum. And then the game would go on. And I think I captured that spirit. That's how I analyze it. Victoria Day, they would have a sports day to celebrate that long weekend. And of course, I start remembering how the neighboring villages came to participate in the tournament. And the Alert Bay teams, the Kinkham team, Guildford team, Village Island team, Fort Rupert team. So it became quite tribal. And of course, what made it so awesome for us, by this time we're in a residential school. So you have relatives coming to play in that tournament and families. And so you had a chance to be with them and visit them right there. So it created, once again, this great feeling of community and involvement just by having your family play that sport. So when a staff person would throw the ball out, say, you kids go play now. So we would go play amongst each others and have a little scrimmage and on and on. I started to look back on that experience, and I start thinking, that was the time when freedom played a role in our lives. We always searched for that freedom. We had that freedom when we were in the village as young kids, and now for this moment where the staff said go and play, that was a freedom, you know. And so in my mind and my heart, when I start to learn about answer that question that my university partner asked about what's the passion there, well, soccer, it symbolizes freedom. It's not just a game for me, it is freedom, you know. So there are influences that happened to come your way, and you start to interpret it as to, is that passion? Is that an involvement? And so that's where I really grasped onto that. And it's taken me around the world now, you know, and in my field of sports administration, you know, I've been really fortunate to be involved, and right now I'm 74 years old, and I'm still playing this wonderful game, among other, you know, with my teammates. Of how Dad was quite an inspiring a soccer player. And anyway, he has his younger brother. His name was Uncle Pin, Harry Scow. And I remember going, and by this time June Sports had come around. In 1958 they created June Sports, and it was in celebration of Canada's centenary. So it became a really big event, and June Sports was set up on Father's Day, and the third week in June, and it wasn't. It was intended to be timed, so when the fishermen were getting ready to go out to the fishing grounds, the Gillnet and the Seine, they wanted to use that event to bless the fishermen and the fishing industry, as well as being a sport event. And so I can't, how do you say, forget that. It wasn't just a sport soccer tournament. They did include, you know, that blessing. Guess who is going up there to receive a Most Valuable Player award in June Sports? I was a young boy, and I was looking up as he was going up the steps to go and receive his award, number 9, my Uncle Pin. And he was 49 years old at the time he received that award. And at that time I said, I want to be like my Uncle Pin. So since then I was always number 9, and I said, how can I outplay this 49? Well, it has its own time. But for him to go and receive that award in front of the people, it was significant, of course, because he was a gentleman, but he was very strong. And when the whistle blew, he became a soccer player. A soccer player. I mean, he had a strength about him. And so I look at that, and then I pair that up with his older brother, my dad. And I says, the world of soccer is strong in our blood. So when I tell my grandchildren, my daughter says, if you're Nelson, you got no choice, you're playing soccer. As a young boy, I was 7 years old. Brother Frank and I went at the same time. He was 8 years old. And we'd see this red brick building. And we knew that it was the big school, it was called. But we didn't know what was going on in there. As young boys, you just saw it as a picture, because we were there to go and go to the movies and do other things as young boys. And anyway, and so when we finally were told that we were going to go there, and this is what, there's a couple of layers of emotion that come my way. I didn't realize when I was doing the timeline for that, when I entered the school, I did another timeline that happened later. It was in October of that year, our mom passed away. And so on one hand, it was this residential school, and then the passing of mom. And then it was And I always had this feeling, did they allow me to go to our mom's funeral? Because it was in Guildford, not too far away, but still. And so that story kind of is detached right now. And so the timeline of September 1954, you had this emotion that started to be there. But when we first entered, we looked forward to going. We were like little boys. We're going to go to this big school. We're going to go to this big school. And I remember Brother Frank and I had these brown little suitcases, you know, cardboard, nice looking little suitcase. And we, you know, we packed them, folded things nicely, and proud of what was in those suitcases. And so off to St. Mike's we go. But little did we know what was going to happen when you left. So I remember, and it's interesting in my story, I used to say Mom and Dad took us to the big school. But how could Mom be involved in it? Because he was in the hospital. In this term called drop off, I'll come to that story in a little while, the term dropping off. But anyway, we go in there and we get registered. We go meet the principal or the staff, and they take you to a place where you get registered. And right there, after Dad gives us his hug, and you know, nobody really prepares us for that moment. It's like these kids, they're just excited. And we go left, and that's going to the boys' side. And the first place they take us is in the clothing room. And so Dad leaves, Frank and I go left. And like I said, just that moment, I don't, like I say, for me, the excitement was still there, but it started to change. First evening, you're sleeping, and you got all these other boys from other places. When I think back on it, that was a level of comfort. At least we were together. Because what starts to happen is now you have your own sleeping space. Okay, you have your own, and so go back to this. When we make a left turn, they take you to the clothing room, and they give you all new clothes. You've got your little suitcase packed with your clothes, but we never got to see what was in that bag again until we were ready to go for Christmas, if you're lucky, or summer. And that's when I started realizing, like, you not only had new clothing, they gave you a number. So I was number 23, and so all my clothing had number 23 on it, and that's how we were organized. Now you became a number, and eventually you said, that's who I am, I'm Alec. No, you're number 23, you became a number. So those become sort of some of those attachments that starts to happen. But the emotional piece starts to veer its head in an evening. So we have a 7 o'clock bedtime, and by that time we're junior boys. So you start to think, oh geez, Mom and Dad's gonna come pick me up. Oh, Mom and Dad's gonna come pick me up. The third night, things start to happen inside. And you start to realize something's not right here. And and this happens so often, September's, we learn how to go under our covers and start to cry inside. In the whole dormitory, it was eerie to listen to that crying, that silence, and crying and silence. And everybody was getting homesick, realizing, where's my mom, where's my dad? It's not going to happen. Interesting in Kinkham and Guildford, near the end of August, about 2 weeks into August, you start to realize that you're going to get sent away again. You're going to get dropped off. And just that term, dropped off, when you drop something, it's an accident, and it's going to have a thump to it. And this is what I think sometimes when I hear that term dropped off, and it's a proper reference. I'm now comfortable with telling whatever I need to tell about residential school, and it has a purpose of letting listeners know the truth of what happened, and if it's to help others understand what happens to our family dynamics. And I illustrate this where the 5 of us Nelsons ended up in St. Mike's together. You had Brother Hank, junior boy, Brother Chicken Pie, intermediate, Brother Hank, Frank, and myself, senior. So we're separated. But we do everything in a regimental way where you have very little opportunity to see each other or meet and talk with each other and be together to develop what they call the bonding, the healthy bonding relationships between families. And our little sister on the other side, she's the youngest of our family. She's on the other side, on the girl side. We hardly ever get to see her, you know. So that was my biggest criticism of this, the residential school experience, is how it took our family apart. First, it takes you from your community, and then you're there, and then it starts to take away all those wonderful things that are supposed to happen between brothers and sisters and mothers and fathers and grandparents and on, the family dynamics. I think it was that big experience of that foundation way back when, and it's hard to measure, it's just in us, of this term called you know who you are and where you come from. And how it was experienced way back when you were a young baby, who would pick you up, mom, dad, parents, the community, they would uphold you and hold you. And then you start to experience some of the lifestyles that happen in the village. Everybody shared, everybody had this expression of love and care and talked about it, and was it, you know. And so it's not, it's, how do you say it? It's a spirit that was strong enough to be there for you as a young child. And I think that's where I would go. It became this big pillar, and it upholds you in whatever came your way later on. And there's so many other examples that can add to that, but eventually I boil it down to that foundation. I've credited soccer as being a real wonderful spirit that's come my way, the game itself, the freedom of it. I take that as a self-competition inside me of I'm the one playing this game, and I have to look out for how I play this game and who's playing against me, I guess, in that sense, and be prepared for that from a soccer point of view. And the soccer, a ball is not just a ball to me. It is life. It is the most obedient object in this world at that time. And how it connects with me is what it's going to do. So if I kick a ball and slice it to the left, well, it's going to go and be sliced to the left. If I kick the ball up in the air, it's going to go up in the air. It's the most obedient. So I had to take a look at that and say, what does this mean? You know, it starts to become more than just a game. It is a lot of disciplines that come into our play in life, that it becomes a teaching tool. Many things come my way as illustrations and models and stories, one of which is our cedar tree. I think we, as the older ones now, have an opportunity to tell stories about a history, a proud history, and in this case the term resilience. You know, how do you convey, how can you tell stories that demonstrates that? And then how do you then also demonstrate that and walk your talk about that pride that you have, and at the same time maintaining all the cultural teachings, the behaviors that come with the ancient ways and the fortunate moments that we still have to perform those. You can look back as young people and look at that strength, and you take what you can, and the responsibilities is to pause and then look forward and reenact as best you can a history, but you yourself become that future. You yourself are walking your own walk, but at the same time you're taking a lot of those teachings with you. Walk proudly, walk with your head up, let the people know who you are. Remind yourself you are a good heart. And
The Rio Doce. That was a fabulous film. Thank you. What a wonderful interview. Such wise words from Alex Nelson, who's, of course, a very accomplished leader here in British Columbia and internationally for his work in athletics and for, all of the amazing work he does with youth and in community, and of course for being a great soccer player. I just want to take a moment to say a few thank yous. We're going to pause briefly from the films and have an interlude with Answer. But before they come out, I just want to note that the two remaining films are wonderful. They're from Peruzzo and Eli, both of which were mentors to the youth in their filmmaking camp. So we look forward, we hope you'll stick around for that. It's only about 10 minutes worth of additional programming after Answer is left. But also want to thank our many partners, which is Songhees Nation, and also of course Esquimalt Nation, MediaNet, Flux Gallery, and Circle, the Center for Indigenous Research and Community-Led Engagement. In particular, of course, Dr. Jeff Korntassel, and also our good friend Hector, who was so supportive with all of the coordination. And thank you very much to the UVic tech crew for being here and for helping us get this right. And of course to you, Marina, thank you for ensuring that all the films were in order and presented as well at the gallery space. We also have had so many wonderful partners for One Wave this year, and but none of this work is possible without the support of our funders, which are Canadian Heritage, BC Arts Council, the Province of BC, CRD, and the City of Victoria, and our supporters in the community, which are very many, and we're very grateful to all of them. And of course, the team of staff and volunteers, and our PPP board members, which we so appreciate, two of which are here today, Moave Va'a, our president, and Lorna Eastman, our vice president. So thank you everybody for being here, and of course there's more to come, but for now I'm going to pass this mic over to Nicole.
Hello, Nicole. Is there anything that you need? I don't think so. Is it okay if I read off my phone?
Sure. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Whatever you're comfortable doing.
Okay.
So this is
Just if I speak loud.
yeah, you'll still want to speak loud because it's not mic'd in here.
Yeah, could you do it for me?
Yes, absolutely.
And then I just pass it on?
Yeah, just pass it on after.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. First, I just want to begin by acknowledging the Lekwungen, Esquimalt, and Wasanich territory. I have the privilege of being here with the drum group Answer, which stands for All Nations Strong Women for Education and Reclamation. And we're transitioning into including queer and two-spirit people. So our acronym is going to change soon, but I don't quite know what it is yet. So I'm not going to introduce that now. So I will introduce myself. Buju, Nibano Benesik Indigo Anishinaabe Mong, Mong and Guime, Anishinaabe Irish Ukrainian and Daugaye, Nimagwecha Wendam. So my traditional name means summer thunderbird, and it comes from the loon, and I received that name from Heidi Stark, who is Anishinaabe from Turtle Mountain. And so to begin, I was asked to speak about peace and healing, and a couple of thoughts came to mind as I was reflecting on this topic. What I've come to know, and I'm by no means an expert, is that Indigenous laws are intrinsically connected to the land. And one thing I've always wondered about in our laws is the more ruthless part of laws. Like for instance, when you're watching a video of like a killer whale tossing a baby seal, I always wondered, what do we learn from that? And I spoke to a good friend, Christine Tsai, who's also Anishinaabe Kwe, and she spoke and thought that, and reflected back to me that it meant that we can't escape hardship or suffering or difficult things in life. It also made me reflect on systems that are like the whale tossing the baby seal. Systems of colonialism, patriarchy, ableism, racism, I could go on, that make it very difficult for certain communities or people to access healing or peace. And so maybe these parts of nature or laws are also calling us to reflect on the systems of oppression that are in fact not bringing peace, they're not bringing healing, but they just continue to cause more harm. And so when I think of the flip side of our laws and of our stories, I think of healing. I think of Anishinaabe stories that show the union, balance, and healing that happens within nature. I think of my partner, Margaret, who is Coast Salish, who has been deeply impacted by colonialism, and how nature, birds specifically, have shown up for them to bring peace and healing amongst some of their most trying times. And I have permission to talk about that. Margaret allowed me to say that today. And so something I'd like to now do, just to give some space for reflection, a chance for us all to just be present together in this space, is sing the Anishinaabe water song. And so this song says, water, we love you, we thank you, and we respect you. Papuan territory, and we were told that if we knew any of our language to speak, because the whales would hear us. And so my partner was speaking Sishalam to the whales, and the northern pod showed up. And at first it kind of seemed like maybe they were gonna just swim by and keep going. And then they started breaching. And then 3 of the matriarchs of the pod turned and came right towards us on the shore. And so I wanted to compose this song to just honor those ancestors and the relatives. And you'll notice that Adam's wearing the wolf and the whale mask. And it's just to symbolize the transformation stories that are told up and down the coast. Good day, everyone. Thank you for having us here today. My name is Alicia. My traditional name is Echtub Aksup, which means humpback whale woman. I'm part of Answer. I've been part of Answer for many years. My family is Swampy Cree from the Grand Rapids Nation in northern Manitoba, on my mom's side and English on my dad's. And Answer for me has been transformative and a place of really, really deep healing. So much so that I did my thesis, my master's thesis, on the connection to culture and the power that that has when we walk in the world as healers and helpers, more particularly around being social workers, because I'm a social worker. And so my whole piece of work and piece of research was on connection to culture as a healing modality. And part of that thesis was composing a song, and the song is an honor song. It's to honor the work of healers and helpers in Indigenous communities. Part of that work was reciprocity and that idea of needing to give back to my community. And so this song is a gift to anybody that wants to learn it and wants to sing it. So yeah, we will sing it for you. I'm not sure if you're going to learn it the first time, but we have made a commitment to making sure that we put it on our social media so that people can refer back to the song if they want to learn it. There's Cree language in the song. The first Cree word is kiam, which is that sense of inner peace that comes from walking gently on the earth. The second part is kispe uawasawan, which means he or she defends children. The third verse is wagodowin, which is kinship care, or that idea behind those traditional systems of caring for children, where aunties and uncles and grandmas and grandpas stepped up to care for their relatives and the children within the family if their parents couldn't. And then the last verse is Gisa Giden, which is you are loved by me. So we're going to sing that for you.
Well, Yeah, good. Anin Buju, Rebecca Nindijnaka, Jaganashamoan, Manganawa, Indigo Anishinaabe Mang. My name is Rebecca Haas, and I am Métis from the historic Métis community in Georgian Bay, descended from Mohawk lineage, and I have Anishinaabe relatives from the Georgian Bay area as well, and I am also mixed European. I was asked to speak a little bit about Eagle because we're going to share an Eagle song with you, and like my sisters in Answer, reflecting on the theme today of healing and resurgence and the Day of Peace. And I wanted to share a traditional Anishinaabe story. There's a story of the eagle, and the eagle is a bird that is treasured and honored in many indigenous traditions. But for me, the eagle holds courage, vision, and great strength. And this story really embodies that teaching. It is said that after the Great Flood, when man came back and the four-leggeds and the birds, the Gitchimanadu, the great mystery or creator, gifted man the great law, which was about kindness, generosity, sharing, the basis of community, so that we could all live together with our two-leggeds, four-leggeds, and our winged ones, all getting along in peace and harmony. But over time, the peace was lost because man became very selfish. And hunters began to hunt only for gain and for fame and for notoriety. They stopped caring about feeding their families as the primary reason they hunted. And it was a very difficult time. And it was Gitchimanadu who got very angry about this and decided that man maybe shouldn't be here anymore and that he didn't understand how to live in harmony with everything, and suggested that maybe it was time to wipe man off the planet. And when Eagle overheard that, Eagle stood up for man and said, I know there are good people who remember this teaching, and I'm going to find them. Gitchimanadu said, then you need to find them and show them to me, or I'm destroying them. And so for days, Eagle, with its incredible strong wings and its amazing vision, the bird that flies closest to Creator, the highest in the sky, flew and searched for that man, for that family, for those people who remembered the great law. And for days found nothing and was very disheartened, but continually went back out and searched. Finally, as Gitchimanadu's patience is wearing thin, it is the eagle who sees one lone family sitting together outside of their wigwam with smudge, offering prayers, laughing together, singing, sharing as a family, and representing that teaching. And as that smoke went up into the sky where Eagle could see it, he knew he had found that that great law had not been lost. And he flew directly to Gitchimanadu and said, you must spare them, I have found someone. And so, as you can see, we were spared. When I think about that story, and I think about what we're talking about today, I think about the incredible teaching for me to remember that when times are dark and times are hard, it can be easy for me to give up and to not want to move forward, to turn away. And I need to remember the eagle who had faith that there were good people. There were people who remembered kindness, generosity, and the law that makes peace. And like the eagle, I too can be strong. I too can have greater vision, and I can continue onward and find those good people. And I have found that in my drum group as well, that chance for healing, of community and connection. And we all have communities that we can reach out to, and then where we can find those people who are also living by that teaching of kindness and reciprocity that brings us peace. And so having said that, we will sing the Eagle song, but I also feel I would be remiss if I didn't invite all of my drum sisters up to introduce themselves and share their names and where they're from. I did not share my traditional names, which I should have. Manganawa, which is an Anishinaabe word given to me by Métis elder Renee Mishaki, which is big voice. And the other name I carry is Hupath Aksup. I'm still working on my Nuu-channel, and it was a name I received in a traditional naming ceremony in Nuu-channel Potlatch, and that means grandmother moon. Can I invite my sisters to come up and please introduce themselves before we sing? I'll share the microphone.
My name is Natalie, and my traditional Nuchalnath name is Chak Aksup, which was also given to me in the potlatch this spring. And I'm Driftpile Plains Cree from northern Alberta.
Kui Abdulasi, Nina Nigmema Jaktalawasi Kiri, and I am Mi'kmaq from the Eastern Woodlands. Thank you.
Joshua Tansanan Adam Goche. I'm from the Simon First Nation. I'm a two-spirit person, and I'm very grateful to be here today.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Francire. My English name is Francire. My given name at a naming potlatch is Nani Aksup, and I am Métis in French from the Gaspé Peninsula in Quebec.
Hello, my name is Donna Mandrick. I'm a visitor on the Songhe territories. My dad was Mohawk and Anishinaabe in French, and my mom was Irish and English.
Nicole, do you want to say something about your Eagle song, or shall we just sing?
Okay, so the next song we're going to do is the Coast Salish Anthem, and I had permission to sing this song from Victor Underwood, who's from Sayout. So we will do that next, and Jessica, who is Nuchalnath from Tashat, will be dancing the Eagle Mask for you tonight.
thank you so much for joining us for this offering of teachings and songs. It's been a long pandemic for Answer, and we haven't had an opportunity to share teachings with people in a room, or songs or dances in such a long time, and it's very good medicine for us to share, and I hope that it has been good medicine for you to hear it.
Amazing, amazing presentation. Thank you so very much. I think probably, do you have one more? I wasn't sure. No, okay. Well, thank you very much, Answer. This was so beautiful, and you just filled this space with your light and with your spirit and really brought hope to us all. And, thank you for your words and for sharing, so much from your families and from your elders and your communities and your own spirit. And thank you for being here today. It's been wonderful and adds so much. And Jessica, thank you for the amazing bannock today. It was wonderful. And for wearing that amazing, amazing outfit. We're going to turn it over to Ksid now. And Ksid is going to introduce a little bit about the mentors. And we have 2 more short films for you. There's lots more food. So those of you that are able to stick around, we hope you will. Ksid, I'll just pass that on to you. Thank you.
As Marina and April mentioned, we did have 2 mentors for the film camp. The first one is Peruzzo. Peruzzo Kapor is a Kafuso mixed media storyteller. Peruzzo is from Araguari, Brazil, raised between Uberlândia and Ituiutaba, Brazil. Peruzzo grounds his craft of photography and filmmaking in values of responsibility as well as pathway to honor his roots. His work examines the interconnectivity between identity, land, and well-being. I just want to share a few words that Peruzzo really did help my work. He had this framework of using self-location, which to me was my understanding. Wherever you go in your work, you always have to question your beliefs and your identity and how to put that in your work that makes sense to you and to others. Our last video is by Eli Hirtle. Eli Hirtle is a Cree Scottish British German multidisciplinary artist. His home community is in Wabasca, Alberta, part of the Big Stone Cree Nation. Eli is a photographer, filmmaker, and storyteller interested in documenting Indigenous culture resurgence and revitalization. Thank you.
My name is Butch Keenum. I'm hereditary chief for South. Quinanoo here. Quinanoo is where you're at. Quinanoo is where our chieftainship began here. Quinanoo is a special place, a magical place for us, where magical things happened and a great part of our history occurred. So we always remember that when we come back here. But I'd like to welcome you to our land, to our territory, to Quinanoo. Our elders told us that we were put here by the Creator, by Hales. We were put here. And these islands were created from our ancestors. Our ancestors were thrown out here, and the islands were created, and they said, you were going out there, you're going to help your people. And that's how the islands were created. These were created for us. This was a special place, they said, a special place where the fresh water meets the salt water and creates this unique place to create life here. And that's why this territory is so precious to us. So I do welcome you to our land, welcome you to Quininu, and I hope that each one of you will learn something special here today, learn something special about the land, and have a good experience in Quininu here today.
I encourage you to find ways to enjoy yourselves and all the different things that you do today. And I really encourage you, it doesn't matter how much or how little you know of your language and your culture and your rights to this place. All that matters is that you're making these steps. And so you being here today is a really big thing. It's a really beautiful thing. And we hope that the Che here, the work that we will be doing together, will medicate your Kloulechans, but also just to be here, just to connect you to your inherent birthrights here and make you feel at home and make you feel whole while you're doing it. So the Daphne pull, it doesn't seem like much, but it is a great contribution to to protecting your relatives of the deep. Because then you can uncover parts of the medicines that Hale's created in this place.
I feel like this is a really poetic gesture of decolonization. Like we're physically decolonizing the land by allowing these native plants to have space to grow, to thrive. So I think it's really important to be doing this work, to be taking out these invasive species, to have these natural native plants to be here because they belong here and they've been here forever and we've co-evolved with them, so we need them as much as they need us.
So as we're removing those invasive plants and those negative traits and energy that those carry, it's taking away the nutrients and the energy and the prayers and the protection that our ancestors have left here in this earth, and they're removing that from our medicines and our relatives in the dirt, in the soil, in those little bugs, those microbes, and all these plants haven't been acknowledged for a really long time. And we're going to heal the land and we heal ourselves and we heal forward and we heal back. This healing isn't linear, it's non-binary. And we get to heal our ancestors who took care of this land here. And we also heal for the future youth and the next generations.
Consider every action that you're doing here today is a prayer, and it is a part of the teachings that Hales has passed down to us after he created these islands for us.
All those teachings were there for a reason. No matter what you did in your life, it's always there for a reason. And like Eric was saying, everything was said in a prayer. No matter what you did, everything was said with a prayer to protect yourselves.
Thank you everybody for this really sacred work.
What a beautiful way to end our journey tonight, to have this beautiful reflection from Eli Hirtle, showcasing such an important project that showcases resurgence and community action and taking back the land in good ways. I want to thank everybody for being here today, all those that are here in person, all of those that are here with us virtually. I want to thank everybody that helped contribute to this program, whether you helped to create a film, you helped mentor someone that created a film, or you offered a beautiful prayer, or helped behind the scenes with innumerable kind of details. I just want to say this work doesn't happen without community, and we're really honored that we could do this day with you today and mark International Day of Peace and the hope and promise we have for our future, especially through our youth. Dr. Jeff Corntassel, would you like to say a word in closing?
We've been talking for quite a while, and it's been such an amazing time together. So I'm still getting used to seeing people in person, so that's a blessing as well. So yeah, I just wanted to say wado haichka to everyone who contributed to tonight to make it such a success. And Cherokees, we have a notion of leadership, a model leadership that was shared with me by the late Benny Smith, who's a Cherokee elder. And so that leadership starts with a vision, and you have to live that vision each day, and then you make that vision relatable to other people, and then you mobilize for change. And so I see that in all the films tonight, that vision for leadership and that willingness to take action for change. So wado haichka for everything tonight, and we always say dodada goa until our paths cross again.